Okay, so today, we're going to discuss a topic that is relevant to us at all ages. I mean, not all ages, but once you pass STGJ, this topic becomes very important. Okay, and the topic is ambition. What is ambition? What are we asked? Is it okay to be ambitious and to be Christian? Are we, doing something wrong by being ambitious? Are there certain things that we need to be careful about? So we're going to discuss all these things. So let me start with the question. This question is just to get you thinking, okay? Just to get your brain thinking. Who thinks that you can be both Christian and ambitious at the same time? Raise your hand. Okay, who thinks you cannot be ambitious and Christian at the same time? Yeah. Who thinks you cannot be Christian and ambitious at the same time? So you all agree that you can be ambitious and Christian? But why? Yeah.
Because ambition comes from goals. So if you set the right goals, it will lead you to the accordingly. So depending on what your goals are.
Type. Depending what your goals are.
What's the reason you have this ambition?
What's the reason you have this ambition? Any other idea? Can someone define ambition? Fail Mary Salih, our Merriam-Webster.
A strong desire to do or to achieve something, typically requiring determination and hard work.
Okay. So if you just look at the core definition of ambition, it's an aim. It's a strong desire to accomplish something. But for some reason, in our everyday modern life, when people say ambition, we always think of it as something negative. But it's actually not negative. And we'll discuss it. There are some negatives that we have to be aware of. But this is the core definition of what ambition is. It is a strong desire to accomplish something. Right. So let me ask you this now, because this has to be relevant. And we're gonna do an exercise. I did this the same topic for ICON, the meeting that we do again. So maybe I don't know who. Maybe some of you were there for the meeting. It's the same thing. Now we're talking about career. Okay, so we're talking about ambition in your career. We all agree that this is something we all think about, right? Is there anyone here that does not think about this? Besides Amuna. But as youth, this is something that we think about a lot, right? Ambition and career. So let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask everyone to close their eyes and raise your hand when I say certain things, okay? And then I'm going to tell you at the end what the percentage of... you'll see how it is. Anyways, the question is, what are the top 3 things... لا استنى أنا أقول السؤال. What are the top 3 reasons you picked the career you picked? What are the top 3 reasons you picked the career you picked? Now, I want you to think about this and be very honest with yourself, and let's not make up. Let's not be idealistic. Be very realistic about it. Be very honest about it. And I'll give you like a few seconds, and then I'm going to ask you all to close your eyes, and I'm going to name some of those reasons. And then if that reason is one of the top 3 that you have, raise your hand. Okay? But everyone, كلنا مغمضين. أبونا بس اللي هيفتح عينيه عشان he's the only one that can judge us. So, خلاص, are you ready? The top 3 reasons you picked the career you're in, or the one you want to pursue. Okay, now everyone close your eyes. And let's all close our eyes عشان ما يحصلش judgment. مش ناقصين. Okay. If one of your top reasons is money, raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down. If one of the top reasons is to have respect, raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down. If one of the top 3 reasons is to have fame and recognition, raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down. Okay, open your eyes. So, it's actually funny, this is the second time I'm doing this, and it's almost the same percentage, more or less. So, at least, between 60 and 75% of you said that money was one of the top reasons. Okay? Less than 50% of you said that it's respect, and even less, maybe 10 or 20% said it's for fame or recognition. And because money is a big issue, we'll start there.
Sorry,
Yeah.
when you mean respect, and I choose it for people to...
You feel that when you're doing this career, people will give you a certain respect. Oh, prestige. You have a prestige that comes. Fame and recognition, which means like you're doing something, so you're doing it so well that you want people to praise you for it, regardless of what it is. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of what your job, you're always trying to show others that, hey, look, I did this and this and this and this and this. So people say, oh, yeah, you know, this kind of stuff. So, money is a big issue for all of us when it comes to being ambitious about our careers. And let me tell you this up front. Wanting to have financial security is not wrong. It's not wrong that you think about having financial security. But, and put under the but many lines, Paul would have laughed at this.
Yeah.
He's not. Big, yeah, yes. So, however, there are a few things that you have to keep in mind. There's a few red flags. When you're thinking about money, you have to ask yourself and be very, very honest with yourself, because these could be red flags. Financial security is fine. No one says anything wrong about that. But if you start depending on money or putting your trust in money, and it becomes a goal in itself, that becomes a problem. Let's read Mark 10:17 to 31 about someone who had that problem. So Mark 10:17 to 31. Can someone read for us?
Now as he was going out on the road, one came running, knelt before him and asked him, "Good teacher, what shall I do that I may inherit eternal life?" So Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good but one, that is God. You know the commandments. Do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not bear false witness, do not defraud, honor your father and your mother." And he answered and said to him, "Teacher, all these things I have kept from my youth." Then Jesus, looking at him, loved him and said to him, "One thing you lack. Go your way, sell whatever you have, and give to the poor, and you will have a treasure in heaven. And come pick up the cross and follow me." But he was sad at this word, and went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Then Jesus looked around and said to his disciples, "How hard it is for those who have riches to enter the kingdom of God." And the disciples were astonished at his words. But Jesus answered again and said to them, "Children, how hard it is for those who trust in riches to enter the kingdom of God. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God." And they were really astonished, saying among themselves, "Who then can be saved?" But Jesus looked at them and said, "With man it is impossible, but not with God, for with God all things are possible." Then Peter...
What is the mistake that this man made? What was his problem?
Priorities.
Huh?
Priorities.
So what?
Money is the first thing in his life.
He was too attached to it.
Where does it say that in the text? Does Christ actually, does Christ say what he said because the fact that the man was rich? Was being rich the problem?
No, being too attached to
What? Yeah, so where can someone
Trust
give me
in
that
riches.
verse? Huh?
Those who trust in riches.
Yes. So the problem was not that the man was rich. The problem was, children, how hard it is for those who trust in riches. خلي بالكم المسيح قال الأول, if you read verse 24, it says, 23. Then Jesus looked around and said to his disciples, how hard it is for those who have riches to enter the kingdom of heaven. And then the disciples were astonished. اللي هو احنا مش فاهمين. لا كده احنا اتلخبطنا. يعني ايه؟ He had to explain it further. So he said, but Jesus answered again and said, children, how hard it is for those who trust in riches. So this is the first red flag. You're ambitious, you want a certain career, because you want to have financial security. Ask yourself this question. Is the money the end goal? Can you tomorrow, if let's say you have a job, you are a surgeon, you're making so much money, and tomorrow you make a mistake and balash, you make a mistake. You're a surgeon, and then you have a choice where you need to give up everything that you possess. Would you be able to do it? Would you be able to give it all up? Everything that you worked so hard to get. If you're a businessman and you have chains of, if your name is so big in whatever restaurants, you own like 4 or 5 restaurants, are you willing to give this up for Christ? This is the question.
But what about the part from the beginning? Okay, the first thing that was said, I did this and this and this. What about all those things he kept? He doesn't commit adultery. He doesn't steal. He doesn't. What about all that? That's nothing to God, or what?
David said it. It's priorities. God knows every single one of us. Maybe not every single one of us has money as number 1 priority. But God will always come to your number 1 priority in your life and say, are you willing to give this up for me? For some of us, this number 1 priority is money. For other people, it could be something else. It could be your friends. It could be your family. It could be, that's why Christ said, if you cannot hate your family, your sons and daughters, you cannot be my followers. He comes to your number 1 priority and says, can you give it up? If you say, I can't, then you can't. You can't be his disciple. You have to be willing to give it up. And this man's number 1 priority was his possessions, trusting in his possessions. So, thinking about career, make sure you keep that in mind. First red flag. Second thing, very close to it, it's almost like a twin sister to the problem of trusting in riches, which is making money your master. In Matthew 6:24, can someone read Matthew 6:24 for us? Yeah, can someone read?
No one can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and
Imagine what does it says you cannot serve 2 masters. Think about this. Can someone tell me when you serve God, what do you do? When you serve God? Give me some examples of serving God.
You mean like going to,
Just-
let's say,
Yeah.
visit the elderly or the homeless, or you're giving up your time and effort and energy.
Give me some examples of serving money.
Working.
Time. Yes, spending a lot of time into it. What else?
Shopping.
Did you make money shopping?
Oh, I think
Lottery. Lottery. How else do you serve money? It's the same. If you think about it, it's the same way. How do you serve God? You invest your time, you invest your money, your energy, and you invest your mind, your heart. You invest all of those, right? It's the same thing with money. You're investing your time by working long hours, or trying to take on more work to make more money, or whatever it is, you're putting a lot of energy into it, which takes away from the time of God. So you don't have time for God. You don't have the energy for God. You don't have the mind to think about God. You don't have the will to do anything for God. This is serving money. That's why Christ said you cannot serve both. Because once you're loyal to one, you won't have the energy to do the other. When you're thinking about ambition and career, another red flag. If career is taking up everything of your life, where you don't have any time to spend with God, that's a red flag. Okay. Let's read, well, no, let's get that one. Okay. Second point. Respect. I think around half of you said respect was important. Respect, يعني, and I will define this, I will be very honest. Let's be honest, يعني, we're all, I think we're all Egyptian, yes, we're all Egyptian. يعني, we have to be honest about, we have to talk about real things to us, okay? Let's not try to, يعني, بلاش نزوق الكلام, okay? In our culture, people give a lot of respect based on your career. ده دكتور, ده صيدلي, ده مش عارف ايه, whatever. They give you respect, okay? And you have to keep, and it's true. Let's not, يعني, I want you guys to close your eyes again. And tell me honestly, raise your hand if you feel this is true. Do you feel you are judged based on your career, or do you think the amount of respect you receive in the church, in the community, is based on your career? Raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down. Okay, overwhelming, like 90%. Okay, so this is... Huh?
What's the point of closing your eyes?
So you don't know who else raised their
All
hand?
the other people's
You
answers.
listen like pretty much everybody who
Yeah, but I don't. So 90% of you think that your respect in the church is based on what you do. Big problem.
But thinking that doesn't mean that us ourselves would believe that.
But
Like,
yeah,
like I might, let's say, believe that people actually judge you based on that for work-wise. Like me, myself, I wouldn't, let's say, judge someone for
sure. But the question was, do you feel judged based on what you do?
It's not because you feel judged, it means that what you do, because maybe I don't care if I feel judged, you know. So, yeah, I agree that, let's say, in our community, people judge us based on our career, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to choose a career so that I am judged in a positive manner. You understand?
Yes, I do understand.
So,
But I think it's also not just church, in general, anywhere in society, like if you have one of those like high-end professions, people see you in a different way, not just Egyptians.
I know, but I'm saying that because it's relevant to us.
Yeah.
Like it happens everywhere, but
Yeah.
relevant to us
Yeah.
here. This is. I mean, we have to think about the church. Okay, so this is a thing. You know, we have to think about the church as a hospital where we are all sick and we all go to get treatment, right? This is what John Chrysostom said. Think of the church as a hospital. We're not here to show off our careers or to be treated based on our careers. We are here because we are all sinners and we have all fallen short, and we come because we need Christ. It doesn't matter what you did in your career. We are all one in Christ. St. Paul says, doesn't matter if you are a slave or a master, doesn't matter if you're Greek or you're a Hebrew, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, we are all one in Christ. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you do for a living. We are all one in Christ. We have all fallen short and we need the grace of Christ. So, when this happens in the church, it's different from happening outside. Happening outside, this is the world. The world judges you based on your career. That's known. But in the church, this should be a safe place for all of us. We should feel safe that it doesn't matter what I do. I feel loved, I feel cared for, and I shouldn't feel any pressure. Andrew said, I don't necessarily feel pressure, which is good, I agree. But maybe others feel the pressure to do certain things we're all different. So this whole idea of respect, which can drive your ambition in your career, is very important. Can we read Matthew 23, 5 and 7? It will show you how some people, do certain things to gain the respect of others. So Matthew 23, 5, 7.
But all the works they do not see, they do to be seen by men. They make their the broad and large borders of the garden. They love the best places at feasts, the best seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplace, and to be called by men, Rabbi, Rabbi.
Actually, look at maybe one more verse, I'm sorry.
But you do not be called Rabbi, for one is your teacher, the Christ, and you are all brethren.
Okay, you can go to the end, but it's... Actually, go to verse 12, sorry.
Do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your father, he who is in heaven. And do not be called teachers, for one is your teacher, the Christ. But he who is greatest among you shall be your servant, and whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted.
In Christianity, everything that the world thinks, Christianity takes it and turns it upside down. The world looks at your career and ambition and judges you based on that. In Christianity, you are to be judged based on how low you are. If you want to be first, be the servant of everybody else. And I want to tell you there are some examples in this church of people who have very, very successful careers, and I see them doing things like cleaning up, they really live that principle. They never talk about anything to do with their career. They're constantly trying to serve others. Constantly. So, Christ here points out this problem with the Pharisees, who all the Pharisees cared about is how do I show off that I am important so I can gain the respect of others. Be very careful. It's okay to be ambitious. It's okay to strive strongly to achieve something. But if you are doing it because you want other people to look at you and praise you, it's a red flag. Or to give you respect, it's a red flag. Okay, last point. Fame and recognition. And not many people raised their hands when I said who wants to do this for fame and recognition. Again, it's not wrong to be recognized for something that you did. Let's say you did something for your job and you got an award and everybody knew about the award. Or you went and did مش عارف ايه and the news were talking. It's not wrong for that. But what is wrong is if you go seeking that. It's okay if it comes as a result of your work, but if you are intentionally trying to seek that, then there's a problem. Let's read together Mark 10, 35 to 45.
Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him saying, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. And he said to them, What do you want me to do for you? They said to him, Grant us that we may sit one on your right hand and the other on your left in your glory. But Jesus said to them, You do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They said to him, We are able. So Jesus said to them, You will indeed drink the cup that I drink, and with the baptism I am baptized with you will be baptized. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it is prepared. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be greatly displeased with James and John. But Jesus called them to himself and said to them, You know that those who are considered rulers over the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you, but whoever desires to become great among you shall be your servant. And whoever of you desires to be first shall be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many.
This scenario is kind of funny. James and John go up to Jesus and say, hey, when you're in your glory, when the time comes and you shine, and everybody sees that you're the Christ, we want one to be on your right and one to be on your left. They want the attention, they want the glory. They want to be part of that glory of Christ. And obviously Christ tells them, you don't understand. This glory comes with, drinking the cup that I drink, which is going through the cross and being baptized, the baptism that I was. And they said, we will. We will lay. Yes, you will. They don't understand, it's coming later. You will drink the same cup I'm drinking. But the same point is made. If you want to be first, you shall be last. If you want to be first, if you want to be great, then you have to serve others. It's the same point. So, when we're talking about ambition, we're always talking about humility. Yes, it's important to be ambitious in your career. But remember, to have humility. And I wanted to share something with you actually today. It's a very short video. It's a funny. I find it very fascinating when we talk about Christian stuff here in church. We're talking about Christ and Christianity and things to do with our faith. And then you hear some random guy outside who has nothing to do with Christianity, who's from the business world, talks about Christian concepts as if they invented it. But Christianity has always been teaching these concepts. So I want to play to you, this is a business guy talking about the most successful companies in the world. So he's talking about companies that have been around for more than 100 years. And he talks about the CEOs of the company, the most successful companies in the world. So he talks about their character. I just want you to listen to the kind of stuff he says. This guy is not Christian. But the way he talks about it is exactly what we teach in Christianity. It's funny how people in the business world are rediscovering things that we've been saying for thousands of years. As if they just invented something. So I'm going to play this video. It's a short video. But it's... So this guy's giving a keynote speech at a major event. This guy is an author. He wrote 2 business books that are very popular. I read one of them. He discusses companies that were very successful, and he basically analyzes how they became successful. Okay, so that's
occurs to me is how do we build legions of level 5 leaders? And as we have engaged in our...
Okay, level 5 leaders are the kinds of people that are involved in very successful companies, or what he calls visionary companies.
Like Elon Musk?
Huh?
Like Elon Musk?
Like Elon Musk.
Our research. What we do is we're always comparing those that did something exceptional and built a great company in contrast to others that did not. And I had always, at the very beginning of that process, discounted the role of the individual leader. It always struck me as a great plug figure, right? It basically said, when we said it's all leadership, we basically were saying we're ignorant. Because what we say is, well, we believe the answer is leadership. If somebody was successful, it must have been great leadership. We went in a circle. What did we learn? And so I said to the Good to Great research team as we were embarking on the research, we will not have a leadership answer in Good to Great, which is, of course, highly conducive to their freedom of thought. And I have this strange genetic need to surround myself with young people who really don't care what I think. And as the great Professor Hal Levitt used to like to say, the best students are those who never quite believe they're professors. So, one day I walked into the research team meeting, the whole team had joined hands. And I thought, well, that's a little different. What's up? And they said, today, Jim, is the day we've decided to tell you that you are wrong. What about this anti-leadership bias that you have? See, if we look at the companies that really made these good to great leaps, you can't take the leaders out of the equation. I mean, to remove Cork Walgreen from the Walgreens story, or Coleman Mockler from the Gillette story, or Dick Cooley from the Wells Fargo story, is to ignore the data. You tell us to pay attention to the data, not to you. We invoke that here today. You are wrong. And I pushed back and I said, yes, but what about the comparison companies? The companies that didn't make it. They also had leaders. They also had leadership. Would anyone on the team like to argue that Lee Iacocca was not a leader? Chrysler's a comparison company. Anybody want to argue that Jack Eckert of Eckert was not a leader, but Eckert was a comparison company? You cannot say that the differential was leadership. They both had leadership. It's like an equation. Numerator, denominator, crosses out, goes away, wrote it on the whiteboard, sat down and said, let's go do something useful. And the team, their hands tightened. And they said, we thought you would say that, and we did our homework. And this is when the research team had a really remarkable empirical observation that led to an insight. Yes, both sets of companies had leaders. But the good to great leaders were different than the comparisons. They had different cloth. And this is where we had this insight of the level 5 lead, that leadership is a hierarchy of capabilities, and level 1 is about individual capabilities. Level 2 is about your ability to play well with others, right? Team capabilities. Level 3 is good, competent, effective management. Level 4 is then to blend that with the ability to set direction and to lead. But there is a level that ties them all together. And the 5, the signature of the 5, was their humility. And this was an empirical observation that what separated the truly exceptional, the true great winners who did this, was not their great animus, it was their humility. Defined really as an ability to channel their ambition into something bigger than themselves, and it wasn't about them. So it was really interesting talking to Rick Warren last time. The first line of his book, right? It's not about you. Well, that's a religious book. We're doing an empirical study, drawing upon thousands of years of combined historical and statistical selecting based on stock returns. We find the same sentence. They understood. It's not about you. When I look at some of the people who have been associated with this event, people like Bob Buford and John Bachman and Francis Hesselbein.
So, what do you guys think?
I like you guys.
So, he said something very interesting. He said there were the companies that were visionary, like were very successful over the years, and then there's the comparison companies. The comparison companies are the ones that never made it. They were not as good. They didn't survive as long. And he said there's 5 levels of leadership, la 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 la. And the 5th one that made the visionary companies was their humility. And he said something at the end that was very interesting. He said, because their ability to channel their ambition into something bigger than themselves. Okay? Now I want to take this back. See, but let's skip the business world. Let's go back to church world. If we can channel our ambition into something bigger than us, what would this mean to us as Christians? Forget about career right now. Now we're going to switch from career. Give me more.
Salvation of everybody.
Which is what?
Like preaching.
Which is preaching or serving in general, right? It could be preaching, could be something else. And Abuna said at the very beginning, أول ما قلنا is ambitious, right or wrong? Abuna قال it depends, right? And this is what it is. Career is important, And we talked about all the red flags that you need to keep, keep a lookout for. But it is much better to channel all your ambition, which means channel everything that you have into something bigger than you, and make that something bigger than you your service. Make it Christ and His mission. And that's a much better goal at the end of the day. Okay? So I wanted to show you this video to show you how even in the business world, humility is something that they think about. And this is something that we should consider as well in our career ambitions. But on a spiritual level, it's even better for us to focus on channeling everything into a much bigger cause. If you're focused on yourself, I'm going to tell you something he mentioned in this. Who knows a guy called, what is his name? Michael McWright. Did anyone hear that name before? No one heard that name before. You know why? Because this guy was the CEO of 3M. Does anyone know what 3M is? The company 3M? Everybody knows 3M. Does anyone know who the CEOs of 3M are? Nobody knows. You know why? Because the CEOs of 3M, they care about 3M. They don't care about themselves. So at the end of the day, you remember 3M, you don't remember who the CEO is. Some people are the opposite. Like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, these people are about themselves. So think about, now this is in the business world, now think about that same concept in a spiritual world. The less you think about yourself and the more you think about a bigger goal, the more value or purpose you have in life. Okay? So try to channel as much of your ambition into service, into the church, into just having a relationship with Christ. Okay, there was another section, but I'm going to skip it for the sake of time, which is like some actual practical things that we can do. But anyways, let's skip it.
Give us one.
Huh?
One practical.
No, it's just like some things that we can do is, we have to have priorities in life. And these priorities, you have to really think hard about them. Like actually think hard. And once you set those priorities, write them down. And these priorities should never change regardless of where you are in your life and what career you are doing or how old you are. These priorities should always be constant. And I want to give you another example from the same book. So the same book in the business world, the reason the visionary companies were successful, because they had what they called core ideologies, which never changed. So all the companies like Johnson & Johnson and 3M and all these big companies, they had principles that they never broke. For example, one of the companies had integrity as one of their principles. So they promised themselves to always have integrity. So they're not gonna cheat, they're not gonna claim something that is false, they're not gonna do it. And that came to them at an expense at some point. But the company survived in the long run because they kept to those core ideologies. It's the same principle in Christianity. What are your priorities? And those don't change throughout your lifetime, regardless of your ambition or career. This is just one of the things. Any comments? Yes?
I have a question. Going back to what you were saying about how if you're like serving your work or whatever, you don't have time for God and it becomes wrong. Well, how do you like cope with like not even work like school or whatever, just like you're always at school, you're always studying, and then you have a job after too? Like how do you like deal with all that and balance that out and time with God?
What do you guys think? Open up. Nah, Shabbat.
Put God first.
Okay. Practical. Let's think practical. What does that mean?
Not
Yeah.
studying?
I was just gonna say,
يعني ما تذكرش قصة يعني يوستينا
no, I feel like he's right though. If you actually put like this, like not face or whatever, the situation is you're on the spot. If you just don't worry about it, it'll just fix itself in the, like it's just like a puzzle. It'll end up fitting well. I don't know. It's just talking from
Or
experience.
but
Ends up being
need to
for the
have
best.
priorities, right? So even if it doesn't end up going in the direction that you hoped, as long as God is first, that's what's important, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I want to have a fun story. The guy who's nuts. He told me.
Yeah,
كنت
Alright.
بقول في واحد كان ما كانش يعني didn't spend that much time and actually didn't spend time to study as much.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
أيوة هي.
No, it's just like we had a friend when we were growing up who used to always like help young students study for their exams, but it was like really funny because he had like some really like real exams that were very intense, you know, and he's helping like it would be his exam would be like tomorrow, and you would see him like at Tim Hortons like helping people who had like very like ay kalem high school exams, so like, you know, they're like in Sec 2 or something, and their exams like really like haksafadi, you know. But and I don't know, you know, I'd always be like, come on, you know, you need to study, like your career is really important, you need to know this stuff, don't like, you know. And but they always I don't know, and God always blessed his time somehow, and he always ended up doing well. And even though he, like, yeah, sometimes like these cases that I'm telling you about, maybe they don't get like the best grades on their final exams and on their exams and whatever, but like it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, like God still blesses like their path. So when they finished and they graduated, like several of these cases that I could think of, like they all have very successful careers and very successful lives, and everything, and it wasn't, I'm not sure if that was the guy that you were talking about,
Yeah.
because I had a bunch of different stories. And it's kind of like, I don't know, the biblical example I could think of always is Daniel, because Daniel, like, when he was preparing to be working for the king, like this was his career, and he put God first, like Andrew said, and basically he said like whether or not I'm going to be strong, like I can't eat this defiled food, and then I can't do whatever. So they purposed in their heart that they would not defile themselves. And then from then on, so after putting God first, God blessed everything. And even if sometimes it meant like he was going to lose his life, like so be it. But he always kept his, you know. But like you see how like he became extremely successful in his career, but that wasn't his goal. His goal was God. And that's, like there are some verses like in Proverbs 20, it says, do not overwork to be rich. And another verse says something about that God blesses the faithful, like that like the faithful man abounds with blessings, like that God will bless him and everything like that, but like the person who's like trying to get rich is like on the wrong track. I think, like I don't remember exactly, it's also in Proverbs. So like that's all the bits, like, because a lot of times people use the arguments like, but Abraham was rich and David was rich and all that stuff, but like, look at their lives, like, yes, they were rich, but like, Abraham lived in a tent his whole life, like, he could have very easily said, like, with all this money that I have, I'm going to build an amazing house and, you know, stop following God, like, and, you know, but he was rich because God blessed him, it's not because he was trying to get rich, and, you know, and David was rich, but he had, like, an amazing prayer life, and he wrote all the Psalms, he was a king, but he never sought to be rich or never sought to be, you know, like all the examples of people who are like rich and very close to God, their goal was God and he blessed them, and the blessings never stood in the way, because like Nina said, and they would give it all up if they had to in a second. Sorry, that was a very long side. I don't think.
Mom once told me that before you study, the first chapter or something. Because we're always like when you're studying, when you're about to study, you're stressing because you have a lot of stuff to do, you know. But if you just take like the time before you relax, and you read the verse or chapter, then you start studying. Because if you do it after, it's not gonna happen. You're gonna finish studying at like 1 or 2. So you know you're gonna read the Bible before you sleep.
Yeah.
So just do it before. And then as much like if you're taking the metro or the bus or whatever, you have time to read.
Yes.
Anything. Like text and call for an hour, and then after half an hour you
We're like scheduling our lives worse. And guys, I just want to say, so tomorrow, if anybody's still not sure if they should go to Ottawa or not, like it's a really, Father